It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
Mega nonfiction best-selling author Bill O'Reilly. Of course, he hosts Common Sense with Bill O'Reilly every weeknight here on WABC Radio at 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Bill, you want to talk about the Democrats and Biden. Take it away.
Well, there are two factions right now in the party. So there's the Joe has to go faction and the Joe has to stay faction. The go faction is led by the most powerful Democrat in the country. That would be former President Barack Obama. And the assessment is that we can't, I'm speaking for the Joe has to go people, we can't risk backing Joe Biden any longer because he's likely to lose, and then we're going to lose the House and the Senate. So the whole thing is going to collapse, and that's the determination. Now, I know that because David Axelrod, the CNN commentator, we mentioned this a little bit last week, but it's been hyped up more, has been going out and saying, look, we think that Biden is the greatest president of all time, but he's too old to do the job anymore, and he has to step aside. When you see Axelrod say something like that, he is usually speaking for Barack Obama. That's how close the two men are. And he wouldn't say it if Barack Obama didn't tell him, hey, this is the way I see it. Axelrod's not a puppet. I don't want to say that. I think he believes what Obama believes. But that's the message that's coming out. Now, the Joe Must Stay crowd is scattered. There's no central authority behind it. Therefore, it is much weaker than the Joe Must Go crowd, which will prevail. Joe will go. But the timetable is all up in the air because Jill Biden has dug it in and said to her husband, look, we're not going to let them chase us out of here. And Joe goes, okay, because Joe does everything Joe tells him to do. We know a lot of husbands like that, and Joe is one of them.
Well, what a mess! What a mess the country is in. If you would give odds that President Biden will be there on November 5th versus not be on, what do you think the odds are?
Well, I'd say 5-1 against, and I've said this for almost a year because I went through this with my mother, and I saw the progression. See, it's not about really what Joe did during the debate or what Joe did with George Stephanopoulos. It's about he can't come back. He's going to, and everybody knows that. So how can you back somebody with a cognitive decline that is just going to continue to hold him back from doing his job? I mean, the man himself says, well, I got to work fewer hours and take more naps. Okay, well, I think you lead the league in both right now. Right? I mean, we, on Common Sense on WABC, we run the schedule out every day. Rarely does he have anything on the schedule, Joe Biden.
So, Bill.
Now, as Paul Simon once saying, the nation turns its lonely eyes to you, Kamala Harris. Mr. Simon was talking about Joe DiMaggio, but now the nation. And you know the signal. It's a fascinating thing how these political parties work. So the signal is now it's got to be Kamala. We don't want to go in and have a brawl in Chicago in August. We don't want to go in with people throwing mud at each other, trying to convince delegates to vote for them. That's what an open convention is. We don't want to do that because that'll make us look bad, us being the Democratic Party. We want to go in and coalesce behind one person. And Kamala Harris has made it quite clear that she wants to be that one person.
So let me ask you, Bill, how did they finesse that? Because like you're saying, she's making it clear they're trying to prop her up. But then you got, on the other hand, you've got Joe Biden today. You've got the president calling into Morning Joe saying he's not going anywhere. Bring it on. How do you finesse this? What happens?
Well, it's like Nixon. Very similar to what the nation went through during Watergate. Nixon, it went week by week with him. That's the drama of it. Remember the hearings, and they were in there, and everybody's around, and no, Nixon was going to do it. And then,
oops, we're losing you, Bill. We're losing you a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah,
It's
much
like
better now. Yep.
Yeah, like the Nixon situation. And then the tipping point was when Nixon was heard on the audio, we can get the money to shut up the people in the White House behind plumber activity to cover up. Okay. Now, there's going to be another tipping point for Joe Biden. There has to be. Something's going to happen that makes him look terrible. And can you imagine the stress on the man? Everything he does now, if he stumbles going up the stairs, if he says something crazy, is magnified and on page 1 on the New York Post. Right? He can't do anything. And Trump's been going through that for the last 8 years. Everything Trump says magnified up and blah, blah, blah. But Biden isn't Trump. He doesn't have that same swagger. Never had it. So the pressure will become unbearable on the president of the United States. And he will have to do what LBJ did in 1968, say, I'm going to hold a job, but I'm not going to run for re-election.
Yeah, the question is sort of the timing of all this, too. Bill, the other thing you brought up about sort of the moments, President Biden he did the thing with George Stephanopoulos. There were a couple weird things that were said. But then this week is supposed to be this press conference. I just heard this morning the White House is saying it's going to be a solo press conference. It's, after NATO. Will it really be a press conference? I guess is the question. Will there be questions that are fed? The black radio host is saying, the African American radio host came out and said that she was fed those questions. So I think a lot rides also on this. Let's see what happens if he really does a full-fledged news conference. If it was Trump, he'd come out and say, hey, I'll ask anything. I'll be here for the next few hours.
Well, he almost has to. Biden does appear with the president of NATO. He almost has to do that. I don't see how they can get around it. And the White House doesn't care about NATO. They care about Ukraine a little bit. They don't care about NATO. So it's all going to be about Biden's cognitive situation. He made it worse for Stephanopoulos two very specific times. Up top, Stephanopoulos goes, did you watch the debate? And Biden goes, he pauses. He goes, I don't think so. You don't think so?
I know when I saw that. That was stunning.
Right. You either watched it or you didn't. And then Stephanopoulos had to ask him this, will you take an independent cognitive exam? Mm. And Biden basically danced and said, no, I'm not doing it. All Biden had to do was say, yeah, I'll take one, but I want Trump to take one. This is independent, outside of the White House. Too, right?
He's not fast enough to do that.
He's exactly right, John. He's not quick enough to do it because that wasn't an answer that was given to him by his staff. Look, at this point, if you're listening to WABC and you're a Democrat and you're a Biden backer, you really have to step back and say, what really am I supporting? What are you supporting? Are you supporting the good of the nation? Yeah, you hate Trump. You think Trump's Hitler, whatever you hate. What do you think? But this is right before your eyes.
Well,
Kamala Harris,
we have to be respected by the world. Right now, we're not being very respected.
And you know that. You've been abroad, and you know that people overseas are basically very frightened. Look, Hamas never would have done what it did on October 7th if Trump had been in office. Never in a million years would that have happened. All you got to do is read my book, Killing the Killers, to see what Trump did to the jihadists.
Right.
Hamas never would have done that.
And Soleimani, we have a question from Ed Cox.
So Bill, he's not running. What happens after that, and how do you get to Kamala Harris through the process?
Well, Harris has got a very strong card, and that's the African-American vote. So if you're not respectful to Kamala Harris, the African-American vote is going to turn against you. That means that all of her opponents have, they can't say like I can as an honest commentator, Kamala Harris is a DEI hire. She wasn't hired for her competency or experience or for her vision. She was hired because she checked the box. All right? Biden said, I want a woman of color. Kamala's in the Senate. Here's Kamala. Okay. But since she's been vice president, can any of you guys give me one thing that she's done to help the nation?
I can't give you one thing Biden has done.
She was the border czar, and look what happened at the border.
That's not her fault. She was set up for that. But she has not done one thing.
She'll still get stuck with it, Bill.
Yeah, I know. But I'm a fair man. I don't hold Kamala Harris responsible for the border. That's all on Biden, 100%. But all Kamala Harris has been as vice president is a champion of abortion. That's all she's been. And, she said that we had an alliance with North Korea. I used that soundbite on my program tonight. Didn't correct it. We don't have an alliance with North Korea. We have an alliance with South. She said it in South Korea.
Oh, my God.
And she said we're defending Ukraine to come to the defense of NATO. Well, Ukraine's not in NATO.
Right.
All you got to do, ladies and gentlemen, is just picture this in your mind right now. Here's O'Reilly sitting in a chair. Here's Kamala Harris sitting in a chair. How do you think that's going to go?
Good luck to Kamala.
Bill O'Reilly at 9 o'clock tonight, between 9 and 10 o'clock on WABCRadio.com, BillO'Reilly.com. And we're in 173 countries, 50 states on your iPhone at 77 WABC. And we'll be listening tonight, Bill.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
so
Bill.
much.
Hi, it's Lou Dobbs for Priority Gold, America's precious metals dealer. These are volatile times with high inflation, soaring debt, wars on multiple continents, and rising financial stress. Central banks are buying gold to diversify their reserves, so are many Americans. Call Priority Gold and find out how precious metals can help you diversify your portfolio. They're highly rated and happy to help. Call 1-866-303-6357 or get a free gold guide at PriorityGoldGuide.com. That's PriorityGoldGuide.com.